Forum for Autism is a parent support group to support families of children with autism. It was set up in the year 2002 under the Indian Trust Act 1950. Forum for Autism mainly aims at creating awareness about autism, empowering parents to advocate for rights of persons with autism. Forum for Autism is a parent body which runs two libraries in Kolaba and in Vashi with around 500 books. It also conducts parent training workshops, seminars, and talks. It has a database of parents and professionals and provides sponsorship to unaffording families. Forum for Autism participates in various activities. To name a few are Mumbai Marathon, conducted workshops for parents with young adults, celebration of World Disability Day at Malad Basti, and self-help skill workshop. Since the lockdown, Forum for Autism is continuing its work online. It has been conducting webinars on various topics like preparing to choose the boards, homeschooling, storytelling sessions, setting up presidential setup, to name a few. All the parents who are interested can check those webinars on YouTube. Chef Sanjeev Kapoor and commentator Harsha Bhogle are the cause ambassadors for Forum for Autism. Throughout the lockdown, FFA, that is Forum for Autism, along with ASK, that is Adult Support Kendra, is offering online individual counseling, family counseling, parent support, apart from various other services. To know more about these services, please contact Nicole Kapadia and Suhasini Sundaresan on the numbers mentioned. Join our journey. Be an active part of Forum for Autism. To know more, please call on the phone numbers on your screens. Thank you for your overwhelming response to our webinars. Forum for Autism requests you to donate generously so it helps in our future endeavors. All the donations are eligible for the tax exemption. Please follow us on social media for updates on workshops organized by Forum for Autism. Please follow our Facebook page, Forum for Autism. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our website www.forumforautism.org.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our next series of webinars. And today's topic is oral hygiene for children with autism. How do you handle oral care and hygiene for individuals with autism? And our speaker today is Dr. Priyanka Engineer. Welcome, Dr. Priyanka. She is an oral maxillofacial surgeon and a cosmetologist, and she has completed her BTS and MDS, and she has pursued her fellowship in aesthetic medicine from the Institute of Laser and Aesthetic Medicine, University of Gersfield, Germany. She's working as a dentist at MaxFac Clinic, Mumbai. Welcome, Dr. Priyanka. Over to you.
Thank you, Abhinav, for the warm introduction. And I really loved the video that was shared at the beginning. I was introduced to the Forum for Autism by my dear friend, Mr. Ravi Iyer and Mrs. Dina Modak, both of whom are members in the forum. And I wasn't really aware of what is being done by the forum. The video had a great insight into what's being done. And thank you for sharing that, everyone. So at the onset, I am here just to help you out with a couple of problems that are faced by individuals who suffer from autism and their caregivers as well. So I think I will start sharing my screen now and we can continue with the discussion. Good afternoon, everyone. So I believe that a healthy smile is the first requirement to each day. And because of that, a smile is something that really creates a lot of sense of warmth in everyone around. So a healthy smile is a prerequisite for me as a dentist and as a person as well. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Priyanka Engineer. I am a dentist and I practice at the MaxPac Clinic in Mumbai. My topic for today is oral health for autistic individuals.
One moment, Dr. Priyanka. Parents, would you please post your questions in the Q&A section, please? We'll take them at the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Yes. So, as parents and caregivers of patients who are within the autism spectrum, I'm sure that you are aware of the various issues that they face. They have issues with executive functioning, sensory processing. They have certain behaviors which they keep repeating. They have certain motor skills that are not as well developed as their peers. They have some thinking issues. They have social awareness, which is slightly on the lower side. They may suffer from not being able to communicate clearly, whether it's verbal or non-verbal. They may not be able to process all the information that they are faced with. So every patient in the autism spectrum disorder does not suffer from all of these. It may be a combination of one or more. Hence, the disease is known as a spectrum. Now, on a general basis, what are the difficulties that autism individuals face? So usually they are not aware of oncoming danger. If they are playing with their toys, they usually want to organize them in a particular line or in a particular pattern each time. They usually reject physical proximity, touch, physical cuddles. They do not want to be touched much. Their sleeping patterns are slightly irregular. They would want to walk around very silently, probably on their tiptoes. They would prefer to play alone as compared to with their siblings or other kids. Sometimes they may even have bouts of hysteria. They are playing with some particular toy or object. They have a tendency to be hyperactive at times. And there are sometimes loud sounds, very bright lights. All of these can cause some sort of discomfort to them. And a couple of them are faced with depression as well. Another major issue that I would say we face with autistic individuals from the medical and healthcare professionals point of view is the communication. So what may seem like a very simple conversation to you and me would be very difficult to comprehend for an autistic individual. So this is something we need to be a little more sensitive towards. Now, the other difficulties that autistic individuals face is they are not able to explain their behavior. They are not able to tell fact from fiction. They may not be able to deal with emotions very well. They will not be able to tell the opposite person's intentions. They may not be good with applying social conventions and greeting people. They may not understand the perspective of another individual. They do not understand how their behavior will affect that of others, and it is very difficult to predict behavior or emotional state for them. So when we talk about all these difficulties, this is not to make them feel bad about themselves, but this is so that as their caregivers, we understand them in a much better way. And when we need to take them to another healthcare professional, we are able to convey what exactly is the range of issues being faced by our particular special individual. Now, from the medical standpoint, there are a lot of triggers that can cause the hysterical behavior or a particular repeated behavior from the autistic individual. Say probably if something is going too fast, the volume may be too high. If the person is meeting too many new people, it may be overwhelming for the individual. Something that is changed from the routine may not go down well. Something that's too hectic, maybe too many activities packed into a single day will not do well with them. Someone new who's trying to get too close to them, or even sometimes a caregiver who's getting too close to them may make them feel uncomfortable. bright lights, like I mentioned, something that may be a surprise. Even a good surprise may not go down too well with them. So these are a couple of triggers that can result in the unwanted behavior from the autistic individuals. So this is something that we need to be a little more aware of. Now, coming to the drawbacks, when we say there's a down to it, there is also a definite up. What are the ups to individuals with the autistic spectrum? So visual skills, they have visual learning and detailed focus. So what you and me may forget, these people are never going to forget. They have a very great eye for detail. They will be very thorough, accurate, and meticulous about whatever little thing they are able to process. They are always found to be inherently creative people. They may be good with art, painting, something of that sort. Integrity. All the autistic individuals are found to be very, very honest, trustworthy. They would like to follow rules to the T. They will not break a particular rule once they have understood the rule. Coming to the expertise. So they have in-depth knowledge about whatever topics are of interest to them. They will give their full time, energy, and focus into understanding the one topic that they care about. Excellent recall and memory. Yes, that's again something that I would really attribute to them. They are observational learners. They will always look, observe, keep it in mind, and then try to do the same action. They're very analytical in the sense that they will try to put the pieces of the puzzle together as well as they can. Again, their focus level and their concentration level is very, very great, to the extent that sometimes they may not even realize that their caregiver is calling out to them. They may be critical thinkers as well. They have a good amount of resilience and pain resistance. The pain resistance part is of particular favor when talking of dental treatment. So that is something that works in their favor. And yet, of all the individuals, autistic individuals that I have met so far in my life, they have all been nothing but kind to me. So kindness is something that I would again applaud them for. Now, coming to the therapy options, as caregivers of autistic individuals, I'm sure all of you have gone through all these options. Speech therapy is going to help them improve their communication, form their relationships, and function in their day-to-day lives. Behavioral therapy is going to help them identify the wrong from right, and it's going to promote the right kind of behavior. Sensory integration helps them deal with brighter lights, loud sounds, even the basic feeling of human touch. And the medications, of course, are a supportive role, and they work best when they're used in conjunction with the behavioral therapy. So now that we've spoken about all of this, where do we stand when we talk of oral health and autism? So we have studies have given us this figure that around 20 to 25% of individuals with ASD may present with some sort of bruxism. So bruxism basically means that the individual has this habit of grinding his or her teeth continuously against each other, which causes certain stresses on the teeth and causes them to shorten or fracture or develop wear pattern. So this is something that we need to be careful about. We need to observe, especially if our special person has the habit of bruxism. Then the next thing that is there is some of them may exhibit self-injurious behaviors, such as they might pick at their gums using their fingernails, they might bite their lips, they might try to peel the skin of their lips, and they might create ulcers while doing this, which may not be visible to their caregivers unless an oral examination has been done. Also, there are certain autistic individuals who are found to exhibit self-injuring behaviors such as head banging. Now, at this time, what happens is while the child is banging the head, they may have chances of biting their tongue or their cheeks with their teeth. So this is something that again needs to be very carefully observed. Also, some of the medications that are used for patients with ASD have got oral side effects such as dry mouth, gingival inflammation or gum swelling, and some of these medicines such as phenytoin might also delay the eruption of their teeth. So this is another area of concern. If you need to be aware of how soon and how late the particular tooth is going to erupt so that you may realize if there is a delay. Then comes gum health. So poor gum health is a very constant feature in most of the autistic individuals who are facing difficulties with good hygiene. This may be due to multiple reasons, such as the lack of manual dexterity to brush properly, or the lack of awareness to do by the caregivers as well. Often we have seen that in autistic individuals, the family is so held up with taking care of the other therapeutic options that dental health is usually neglected. Another is there is dental decay. Now, there are contradictory studies about dental decay in autistic individuals. The first couple of studies in Australia have shown that there are lower chances of dental decay in autistic individuals, while those back home in India show higher rates. Now, the reasons for this is firstly, autistic individuals are given a slightly softer diet and they usually prefer a sweeter diet as compared to other individuals. Next, they have a tendency to pouch their food inside the instead of swallowing it. This is because of basically due to poor tongue coordination. Also, they may be faced with the issue of drooling of their saliva because of poor tongue and mouth coordination. So all of these issues basically lead to a state inside the mouth wherein there's a lot of accumulation of sweet products which release some sort of acid and ultimately lead to decay of the tooth. But surprisingly, in India, individuals with autism are almost twice as likely to have unmet oral health care needs than their peers without any other disabilities. Now, what would be the reason for this? The first is that there is genuine lack of awareness about dental care, even in the other healthy population. Forget just the autistic individuals. Even if you go to see in India, general awareness about dental hygiene is very low. So when we project that number onto a group of autistic individuals, the number is even smaller. Then the next thing is fear of dental treatment, anxiety of dental treatment. Most of the times, there is a lot of fear and anxiety towards dental treatment that is faced by the family. So, in most of the cases, it is the parents and carers who project their dental anxiety and dental fears onto a patient who is still not even had a single dental visit. Fear is another major reason. Also, it is a very time-consuming process to get dental treatment for individual spectrum. And lastly, the lack of dental insurance in India and the cost of dental treatment is another reason for unmet oral health care in India. So, in spite of these issues, there are certain things that are within our control and should be done. Because at the end of the day, whether the individual is in the autism spectrum or whether he's another healthy individual, oral health always equals to overall health. If there is any oral health issue in the body, it is also going to affect other organs and other systems of the body. Now, coming to the 5 basic oral care tips that need to be followed by everyone. The first thing is that you need to brush twice a day. Most of us have the habit of brushing from side to side and not up and down. So brushing your teeth side to side is going to cause a lot of erosion of your tooth surface. It's going to wear down your tooth structure. So the correct way to brush would be use a soft toothbrush, use it in an up and down manner first. After which you can see in image number 1, the toothbrush bristles are placed at an angle of 45 degrees to the gum and tooth margin. Once the toothbrush is placed there, you gently brush the outer tooth surfaces, brushing only 2 to 3 teeth at a time. Rather than going to all your teeth in one stroke, make very minor gentle strokes, just cleaning 2 to 3 teeth at a time. Once you're done with all the outer surfaces, you same thing on the inner surfaces at the gum and tooth margin. And lastly, coming to your front teeth. So when you're brushing your front teeth, you hold your toothbrush vertically and use only the top half portion of the brush bristles to go in a vertical manner back and forth. So if you brush in this way, the last step that you're left with is brushing the biting surfaces of all your teeth, especially the back teeth. When you do this, do not forget to go around the last tooth at the back of your mouth to clean the area behind it as well. So if you brush using this technique twice a day, using a soft toothbrush and a fluoridated toothpaste, you can keep most dental problems at bay. The next thing that you need to do is employ a very good flossing technique. Dental floss is basically a string-like material that is put inside the teeth, between the two surfaces of the teeth where your brush is not able to reach. Once you use a floss in the proper manner, you take a piece of floss that's about 18 inches and hold about about 1.5 to 2 inches between your two fingers. You slide it between your two teeth and make a C shape around the two teeth. And then you gently just tug out all the food and debris that's stuck between the two teeth. You can also alternatively just let go of one finger and pull out the floss with the other finger. The next important thing to maintain oral health is rinse after every meal, irrespective of whether it's just a single piece of chocolate or a single piece of bread and butter. You need to rinse after every single meal. If you've eaten something, the next thing to do is rinse your mouth and clean everything. Then the next most important thing to follow is avoid all sweet, sticky, and acidic foods. These foods are in general harmful to everyone because they release acids that eat up the structure. So acidic food, sticky food, sweet food is the #1 cause of dental decay. And all of this leads to destruction of your tooth structure and the start of the formation of a cavity. And don't forget to clean your tongue as well. Your tongue is a major home for a lot of bacteria. So cleaning your tongue twice a day is also going to help keep the bacteria at bay as well as prevent the development of any bad mouth odor. Lastly, it's always imperative to visit your dentist twice a year. There may be a lot of problems that maybe can be nipped in the bud, which your dentist may be able to identify, but you may miss. So these are the 5 basic tips that need to be followed by everyone. Now the problem comes here. How do we apply these tips when we talk of individuals who are suffering from autism? So the first and most important thing is use the tell, show, and do technique as their caregivers. Children with autism, brushing may seem very uncomfortable. It may be almost to the level of being invasive for them. So you may just want to start by brushing your teeth in front of your special person. Let the person observe you while you're brushing your teeth. Use a timer. Explain to the patient that you are brushing your teeth for a whole 2 minutes. You're using a toothbrush which is going to remove all the bad material, all the bacteria from the tooth. Then you sensitize the patient by giving a toothbrush in their hand. You just allow the patient to touch their lips or just inside their mouth without actually starting the brushing motion. Also, you can ask the child to start opening the mouth wide initially when you're starting to teach them how to brush. So once this is understood, the patient should be able to have a good look at you doing the same thing so that he or she may want to imitate your pattern. So that is how the tell, show, and do works. Initially, you may need to help your child brush, but with time, in say about a period of 3 to 4 years, your child should become an expert at being able to brush his or her own teeth. Also, another thing with autistic individuals is they're very particular about time. So it could also help if you could keep a small timer near your wash basin so that they brush their teeth for an entire 2 minutes. Also, if you can tell them positive stories about maintaining good oral health, brushing their teeth well, visiting the dentist, if you use pictures, cartoons, and videos to sensitize them towards taking care of their own mouth, that's something that could really help because these individuals are very good visual learners. So if they see a particular action being repeated time and again, and they see a positive outcome of that action at every instance, they are more likely to adopt that behavior for themselves. Also, another thing that could be done is when they are undergoing the behavioral therapy and counseling sessions, you could request the healthcare professional to take one specific section on oral care and how to use a toothbrush and why to use it. Why is it important to keep their teeth clean? That could have a very good positive impact on the individual. Now coming to the correct tools to be used. Always use the soft bristles toothbrush with the right head size. The head size is basically decided based on how old the child or the individual is and how good or bad the mouth opening of the patient is and whether they are able to reach the back surface of their last tooth in their mouth, whether it be the upper jaw or the lower jaw. Also, it is advisable to use a fluoridated toothpaste to brush for all individuals above the age of 2 years. For patients who are very not comfortable with their motor skills, do not have developed enough manual dexterity to brush their teeth, they are not able to give the correct motions of teeth brushing. There are electric toothbrushes available very easily. In fact, there are certain companies which have also come out with applications, mobile applications, wherein the patient can have a phone put in front of them and they can observe as they brush. The screen is going to simulate all the surfaces of their teeth that have been cleaned. So that is something that can also, that's how technology comes into the picture. Also, for those who are uncomfortable with rinsing the mouth properly after meals, using a water flosser would really help. A water flosser is basically a device that's going to eject water forcefully onto the gums so that the gums are relieved of all the food that's stuck onto them. And also a tongue cleaner. Cleaning the tongue is also very important to prevent any sort of tongue disease and oral malodor. Then healthy diet. So the same diet that needs to be followed by any healthy individual needs to be followed for these individuals as well. The more fibrous your diet, the more the more sugar that you can avoid, the healthier your teeth will be. So cheese is one particular group of food that is actually said to be preventive of dental decay. All fibrous foods such as fruits and vegetables and salads also help with the same. Also your nuts and fruits and meat such as fish. All of this which has got a good amount of fiber, a good amount of vitamins, omega-3 fatty acids, all these foods are supposed to be really good for your dental health. So make sure that you consume a lot of these and make sure you avoid the sweet, sticky, acidic foods. Now, what are the preventive measures that you can take for individuals with autism? So there are certain therapies, there are certain treatment options that we have which can be done for a patient even before there is a cavity or before there is any sort of dental problem that arises. Let's have a look at what are the options that we have. The first option that we have is a fluoride application. So you must have seen a lot of ads on TV saying fluoridated toothpaste, fluoridated toothpaste. Fluoride basically is a chemical that strengthens the outermost surface of your tooth and makes it more resistant to dental decay. Now, when should fluoride applications be done? It is usually done once the child is about 3 years of age and all the primary teeth have come up, and it can also be done once the permanent teeth have started erupting. So fluoride applications will help strengthen the tooth and help prevent any new cavities from forming. So this is again a very good preventive step. The next option that we have is Pitt and Fisher sealants. So when you have a look at the structure of a tooth, there are a lot of grooves, deep fissures on the biting surface of our back teeth especially. This is the place where the cavities usually start because our toothbrush is not able to effectively remove all the tiny food particles that get stuck in these small crevices. So in such a case, it would be advisable for the patient to have Pitt and Fisher sealants done. What is a Pitt and Fisher sealant? A Pitt and Fisher sealant is basically a substance which is used to fill all these deep crevices and grooves on the biting surfaces of the teeth so that there is no chance of food getting stuck there, there is no chance of acids being secreted there, and there is no chance of cavity developing there. So this is again a very good preventive therapy that can be adopted. Also, another thing that is possible for patients with bad manual dexterity is we can have a custom toothbrush grip fabricated for them at the dental clinic. So this is something that gives them a sense of comfort and something which is absolutely customized for them, which can also be a good motivation for the patients to brush their teeth well and brush properly twice a day. So this would be really good, especially for those with issues with manual dexterity. Then coming to mouth guards. So we did discuss earlier about patients having the tendency to self-injure themselves, especially with head banging and bruxism. So mouth guards are custom-made devices that can be inserted into the mouth, which will prevent the teeth from grinding against each other, which will prevent the patient from biting onto their own tongue or their cheeks. So this is another thing that can really help individuals with autism. This can also help when they're playing any kind of sport if they do. Now, having spoken about all these options are only and only possible if you are able to convince your patient to visit the dental clinic and go through a dental treatment. So how do you manage a dental appointment for an autistic individual? It comes in many stages. It's not a one-time thing. It starts with finding the right dentist. Find a dentist that usually works successfully with individuals with autism, which would most honestly be a pediatric dentist. A pediatric dentist is a dentist specializing in the care of children and their teeth. Even if your autistic individual is an adult, no one is ever harmed by some little tender loving care from a pediatric dentist as compared to another dentist. Also, pediatric dentists are much more trained at behavior management, and they are much more patient with all their patients. So finding the right dentist is very, very important. The next important step is that as a caregiver, you need to speak to the dentist before you plan the visit to the dentist. Let the dentist know that the patient is a special needs person. Inform the dentist about the exact nature of the condition, the behavioral patterns, what are the triggers, what are things that would make your special individual feel uncomfortable. Once the dentist has all this information, it's easier for the dentist to work. Letting the dental team as well know about the likes and dislikes in advance. Say someone is not comfortable with direct eye contact. If you let the dental team know of this in advance, we make sure that neither the receptionist nor the assistant nor the dentist try to make direct eye contact with the patient so that they are a little more comfortable. If you inform the patient, if you inform the dental office about the form of communication that the patient is comfortable with, we could also have a speech therapist arranged for the appointment to help us deal with these patients. Another important thing is that you need to familiarize the patient with the dental clinic and the dental team. So you could start with showing the patient some pictures of the dental clinic you're planning to take them to. Some pictures of the dentist who's going to be the treating doctor. You show the patient images of how a patient and the dentist is seated during the dental treatment. You simulate this at home. So you teach them, okay, if you once you go to the dental clinic, you will be asked to sit on the dental chair. You need to sit on the chair with your feet in front of you. You do not need to fold your legs. You need to rest very calmly with your hands on your belly. You need to cooperate with the dentist. If you inform them about all of these things in advance, there is a much higher chance of the patient wanting to cooperate during the treatment. This does not come as a surprise to the patient during the first dental visit. Also, you could introduce the child to the various dental equipment and instruments via pictures or videos. Now, once the first appointment has been set for the individual, we usually recommend that the first appointment should only and only include a visit unless there is some emergency treatment that needs to be performed. So if it's a routine dental visit, the first visit should just be a visit for the dentist and the patient to get to know each other, and the dentist will make a genuine attempt to create some sort of a bond with the patient so that the patient is more receptive to any treatment that may be done. The patient should be given a tour of the dental clinic and shown all the relevant instruments. In this appointment, it is also helpful if the patient is allowed to observe another patient undergoing dental treatment such as checkup, x-rays, or a procedure. So it could also help to a great extent if it is one of the caregivers who will assist the dentist in making this happen. So if an autistic patient is having a look at you as their caregiver on the dental chair, undergoing all of this process, they will be able to accept it in a much easier way. And at the end of the treatment, if you give them a very positive response, they will be much more open to receive any kind of treatment. So this is also another thing that is very important. Also, please never use the dentist or an injection as a means to scare your special individual. That really creates a very bad sense of fear. So that is something we've come across a lot of parents who use visits to the doctors or dentists as a threat, which is absolutely wrong. Now coming to the treatment appointment itself. So once the dentist has gotten to know the patient, the dentist is going to ensure that the ambience in the clinic is very soothing and comfortable. If probably dim light, if the lights are dimmed, the patient might be a little more comfortable. What kind of music the patient is comfortable with. Also, the dentist will not directly jump into the treatment. The dentist is again going to implement the tell, show, do technique, wherein with the help of some dummy models or with the help of some videos, the patient is going to be told what the procedure is going to be done. The patient is going to be allowed to touch the instruments, of course, not the sharps. The patient is going to be allowed to touch the instruments, and the patient will be motivated to do the treatment themselves on the dummy models. So that will make things much easier for them to access. Another thing that the dentist is going to use is voice modulation and voice control in order to win the cooperation of the patient. So any behavior that is going to be favorable towards the good treatment is going to be rewarded with a very calm and soothing tone. But any behavior of the patient which is going to be detrimental to the treatment is going to be met with a slightly stern voice. Of course, the dentist is not going to raise their voice on the patient, but these patients are usually very aware of any change in the tone in which they are spoken to. So that is another thing that can help. Also, the dentist is going to be very patient and use as many stabilization aids as possible, because autistic individuals are very prone to get triggered by various factors, and that may result in them making some sudden jerky movements or certain repetitive movements. So because of that, there is chances of the individuals getting hurt with the sharp instruments that the dentist may be using. So in that case, there are multiple stabilization aids available with the dentist. There's a headboard available, there's a bite block available, there are mouth openers available. So all these various tools will help the dentist to make the child more receptive towards the treatment. In spite of this, if the patient is still unable to cooperate, which may happen at times, the dentist may suggest certain other options like immobilization techniques, conscious sedation, and general anesthesia. So immobilization techniques is basically the use of Papu's boards to immobilize the patient completely while he or she is on the dental chair. This can be used for individuals of all ages, and before using this, the parent or the caregiver will be asked to sign a consent form giving their consent to use the following restraining measures. This just helps us to make sure that there are no jerky movements during the treatment and the patient is unable to move and cause any kind of injury to himself or herself. So this is one of the options that is the least favored, but if need be, it can be done. Immobilization can be used in alone or in combination with other techniques such as conscious sedation. So in conscious sedation, there is usually some drug such as nitrous oxide gas or midazolam, which is administered to the patient, which makes the patient go into a state of sedation wherein the patient is still conscious but in a slightly inactive state. So this helps the patient operate much better and makes it easier to go for a little longer treatment appointments. The last option that we have available is in case of patients who are unable to cooperate at all in spite of everything that has been done so far, is general anesthesia. So general anesthesia is usually employed wherein the patient is asked, the patient is put under general anesthesia and basically the patient is unconscious, taken to an operation theater. All the treatment that is required for the patient is done in a single appointment. So this allows multiple short appointments to be combined into one long appointment, and the patient is going to be able to give their full cooperation in terms of keeping the mouth open and not making any movements because the patient is in a state of general anesthesia. So this is the last option that is available, and it is something that should be considered if your patient requires dental treatment but is unable to get it by all the other means. This is no reason to be worried about or ashamed about in requiring some extra help to get the dental treatment delivered to your special person. And like I always say, autism does not come with a manual, it comes with a family that never gives up. And this is something that I really believe, because I understand as a healthcare professional the number of visits to doctors, therapists that parents and caregivers of autistic individuals have to make every single day. It is something that is commendable to make time in your own busy schedule to make sure that your special person is taken care of well. So it's an applause for everyone who's doing everything that they can to make sure their special individual has a much better life. I would like to end my presentation with a big thank you to everyone from the Forum for Autism, Ms. Priyanka Chitlunkar, who has been coordinating with me for this lecture throughout, Ravi Iyer and Deena Modak, through whom I got to know about the Forum for Autism. And lastly, I would like to thank our wonderful audience that's been here with me today. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share whatever knowledge I have on the topic. Thank you. In case you may have any questions, we can take them now. And in case you want to get in touch with me personally for any questions, you can also note down these contact details.
Thank you, Dr. Priyanka. You've covered most of the points as such, but we have a few questions here. Okay.
Yes, please.
First one, which is, how do I know if my child has tooth decay? Any signs for us to watch out for tooth decay?
So tooth decay basically starts with a small black spot. It starts as a small black spot which becomes larger with time, and eventually it becomes a small pit. So
Yes.
what we call a khadda.
Yeah.
Like on the roads in the monsoons, we find lots of potholes. So cavity or dental decay is basically a small khadda on the biting surface or any surface of your tooth. Basically, it starts with a black spot, it increases in size, and then there is breakdown of the tooth structure, because of which there is a cavity formed wherein the food gets stuck. So that is how you identify a cavity. And if you are late in identifying a cavity, your special individual is going to come and tell you, I have got pain in this tooth, which is the point at which your cavity has caused enough damage to the tooth to cause some pain and affect the tooth nerve.
Next question is, what does wanting to chew fabric, etc. relate to?
Sorry, I didn't get the question, ma'am.
What does wanting to chew fabric, etc. relate to? A child who wants to chew fabric.
Yes, that is another point I missed. Yes, as a lot of autistic children have this tendency to, chew on to things which are not normal. Some of them have the habit of eating mud, pika. Some of them bite onto pencils. Some of them might want to bite onto fabric. So all of these habits of biting onto unnatural substances is going to cause a wear pattern on the teeth. It is going to cause weakening of the tooth structure, and usually it is bitten by the front teeth. So the front teeth will show grinding pattern and wear.
Okay. Sarika, would you like to take the next question?
Yes. The next question is like, please give me some general tips we can include in oral care every day.
So, like I mentioned, the most important thing is brush twice a day for 2 minutes at each time. Use a soft toothbrush, a fluoridated toothpaste. Use the correct brushing technique. That is very, very important. Just brushing alone is not going to be helpful. Using the brush in the correct technique that I've already explained is going to be important. Once you do that, and the next thing you need to do is floss at least once a day. It is recommended that you floss twice a day, but even if you mint, also the next thing I would like you all to do is rinse your mouth after every single meal.
Okay. The next question is, weak teeth enamel treatment can suggest co-vitamin and calcium supplement for the same. Weak teeth enamel treatment, and she wants to suggest some co-vitamins.
Sorry, I'm not.
Okay. Okay, then we'll take the next question.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. No, I couldn't hear the question.
Okay, 1 minute. I'll just repeat. Weak teeth enamel treatment, and could you suggest some co-vitamin and calcium supplement for the same?
All right. So coming to supplements for dental health, to be honest, your teeth form much before they are seen inside your mouth. So any form of supplements that you take, once your teeth have completely erupted and visible in your mouth, are not going to strengthen your tooth in any way. Calcium supplements will help strengthen your bones. Calcium supplements will help strengthen your teeth before much before your teeth start erupting in your mouth. So calcium supplements will help you if your mother has been taking the calcium supplements while you were still in a womb. Calcium supplements will help you until the age of 4 years, when your permanent teeth are still forming. After the age of 6 years, once you see the permanent teeth coming out in your mouth, the calcium supplements are not going to help. The vitamin supplements are not going to help the teeth individually. Yes, your calcium and vitamin supplements will help your overall health be much better, but it is not going to help strengthen your tooth in any way. So weak enamel, once the enamel that has been formed is weak, there is no way to repair the weak enamel.
How useful is the annual fluoride treatment in preventing cavities? How do you think?
So
I mean,
fluoride
normally,
treatment, yes.
sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
you
go
were, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go on, go on. She's asking about fluoride
So
treatment being
basically,
given annually. Do you recommend that?
Annually, we would recommend fluoride treatments annually only and only in a high risk individual. Usually, we are able to keep a good diet and we are able to ensure good oral hygiene. It would not be required every single year. The best time to do a fluoride treatment is when teeth have just erupted, so that it forms a protective layer on top of the tooth, and it can be repeated at regular intervals, but honestly, every year would not really be required if the other tips are being followed well.
Sarika, the next question.
Yeah, Dr. Priyanka, use of mouthwash, how important is it?
To be honest, most of the mouthwashes available at the drugstores are commercialized. They have a lot of flavor and they have very less of the medical component. So yes, it does help freshen your breath. There is no doubt about it. Gargling with a mouthwash will be much more effective than gargling alone. But be careful to use the prescription mouthwash only for so long as you have been advised by the dentist. So there are two mouthwashes that are available in the drugstores. One is a prescription mouthwash and one is a general mouthwash. The general mouthwash can be used for as long as you want to, but the prescription mouthwash should be used under medical supervision.
Okay. The next question is there any particular brand of toothpaste which usually have, because children normally have a tendency to swallow the toothpaste. So is there any special toothpaste which usually they can swallow it so that it's safe for them to do so while they are brushing their teeth?
Yes. So, like I mentioned, there are two kinds of toothpaste. One is a fluoridated toothpaste and one is a non-fluoridated toothpaste. Fluoridated toothpaste are to be used for anyone who is able to maintain good control over his or her swallowing. So when you start teaching your child how to brush, you usually start with a non-fluoridated toothpaste until the child is of good age and good control to be able to rinse the mouth well and be able to spit out the toothpaste residues. So long as you have, so long as that tendency has not developed to be able to spit properly, to rinse properly and everything out after brushing, a non-fluoridated toothpaste should be used, after which the fluoridated toothpaste should be used. The fluoridated toothpaste has the benefit of being able to strengthen your teeth more, but if swallowed, the fluoridated toothpaste can lead to a condition known as fluorosis over a long period of time, not in a short span.
Okay, now the question is, my son has been using an electric toothbrush for more than 3 years. How long, is there any long-term adverse effect of using the electric toothbrush?
None whatsoever. It's in fact a more mechanically correct way of brushing, since those who don't have good control over their hands, all they need to do is hold it for a good amount of time onto each tooth. It's a much more efficient way of cleaning the teeth. Adverse effects coming if the head of the toothbrush is not changed on a regular basis. It needs to be changed every 3 to 4 months, and that should be followed very strictly, which is the same case with any toothbrush.
Sarika, the next one.
Yes.
That's grinding. You're muted.
Ma'am, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Sarika.
Okay. Is it safe to use a teeth guard, and how often, and how long they can be used, especially when the child is into grinding the teeth even in sleep?
Yes, so mouth guards are basically, there are a lot of mouth guards that are available in the market. Some of them are stock mouth guards which can be just bought off the store, and they usually are based on sizes and they fit everyone in a particular age group. If you go for custom mouth guards, they are fabricated by the dentist by taking a measurement of your individual patient's teeth. So the custom mouth guards give a much better sense of relief and a sense of wearing comfort as compared to the ones you can buy off the drugstores. Coming to how long you need to wear them. So if the patient has a habit of grinding the teeth at night, they need to be worn every night. The wearing of the mouth guard largely depends on what kind of a habit the individual has. So that needs to be assessed by the dentist, and based on that, the duration of wear, the time of wear will be explained to you.
The next question is, for those with seizures, is nutritious oxide advisable if the adult is unwilling to comply for dental procedures?
Nitrous oxide sedation, if patient is having seizures, we would prefer midazolam sedation in them as compared to nitrous oxide sedation. Nitrous oxide is not completely indicated, but yes, we need a slightly higher level of care and assessment of the patient when the patient has seizures. Midazolam is a good option in that case.
Okay. And what about children who cannot gargle? What do we do? Floss is not possible as my son does not open his mouth except to brush.
So, ma'am, there is something known as a water flosser which is available. So, this water flosser is a small handheld device, slightly larger than the electric toothbrush, that has a small water tank. Once you press the button, the water that's in the water tank comes out like how we use a pitchkari. So, it's kind of a pitchkari with the press of a button, and it cleans all the residue of the food that's inside the mouth and on all the tooth and gum surfaces. So in case someone is unable to gargle well, I think this is something which he or she would be slightly more comfortable using.
Sarika, the next one.
What could be the cause for bad breath, and what should be done for that?
Cause of, sorry?
Bad breath.
Bad breath. So the cause of bad breath is usually multiple causes. It could be food stuck inside a dental cavity. It could be infection inside the tooth beneath the gums. Your bad breath could also be because of some other disorder in the bone or in the gums. And lastly, it could also be due to an accumulation of film on the tongue. So usually patients who have a lot of white coating on their tongue, so that's a buildup of bacteria from all the food and all the substances being. So any food buildup, any bacterial buildup, any disease condition in the mouth can lead to a bad breath. It is important to identify the underlying cause before we can go ahead with the treatment.
There's another question, continuation with that floss thing. And it says that she uses, since that pressure with the pitchkari is not enough, she uses a hand shower in the bath to wash the mouth. Because actually there may be if you have some idea, because bathing water shower and water, that has little pressure compared to the one which we have. So how do you think that is advisable? I think you're not audible.
Can be used. The end result has, there is some amount of force required for water to clean off all the debris from the tooth surfaces. So whether you're comfortable using a hand shower, whether you're comfortable using a water floss, completely depends on you. That is, but make sure the that is being used is absolutely clean. The way you're using it, easier to clean, while the water that you get in the hand shower may have a lot of residue in the pipe, and shower heads have a lot of clogging. So that's something you need to be careful about. But otherwise, I don't think using a hand shower is going to be any worse.
Another question is it safe to use a teeth guard when and how long? Because especially children have this habit of grinding their teeth in their sleep.
Yes.
So do you think we should use it?
It is absolutely safe that mouth guard has been designed to help protect the teeth from the habit of grinding in the sleep. So the mouth guard essentially for those who are sleep night grinders or sleep grinders, these patients need to wear the mouth guard throughout the duration of the night because the mouth guard is going to fit snugly onto the upper and lower teeth and engage the teeth. There is no possibility of it causing any sort of injury. It is made in such a way that it is all the edges are smooth. It is not going to be able to make any cuts or injuries inside the mouth, and it is absolutely impossible to swallow it because of the sheer size of the device. So there is no reason why it can be considered to be dangerous. Yes, the only way it can become dangerous is if it is not cleaned regularly and still being inserted into the mouth.
Another
Parent
question
is, yeah, that is, take about.
is Dolo gel safe to apply for kids if they are having ulcer?
Yes, you can use Dolo gel, and there are a lot of other anesthetic ointments available in the market, which also can be used, but do not use it without the prescription from a dentist. Also, based on the child's age, the dose of the Dolo gel to be used will be altered.
A parent is very anxious about the use of general anesthesia because he feels that just because the child is not able to sit, why should I go for general anesthesia? And is definitely not in favor of it. So what would you suggest to such a parent?
Okay, so in that case, my first question to the parent would be, what are the three basic necessities in life? If anyone could care to answer. Why is roti at number one? Roti, kapra and makan is how it goes. So roti is at number one because if you are not able to eat, you're not able to sustain and survive, and you will not have any use for the kapra and makan if you're not able to have a healthier life. So my advice would be, if you are unable to get your patient to go through dental treatment with the more conservative methods, it is always more advisable to give them the complete dental treatment, enable them to eat properly, rather than missing out on treatment just because you have reservations about general anesthesia. General anesthesia has got is being used for all kinds of surgeries. Dental treatment also comes under a form of surgical treatment. And if it is required, we do take the patient under general anesthesia for dental treatment. And it is not only with autistic individuals. We also do this for otherwise healthy individuals who are scared to take dental treatment. As an oral and maxillofacial surgeon, we have done a lot of cases wherein absolutely healthy adults have come in to get their wisdom teeth pulled out, and because of their fear, they would not want to get it done, but because of the pain, they could not avoid the treatment. And these patients we have taken under general anesthesia to get their wisdom teeth out in a single session. So the advantages of general anesthesia would be that, one, patient cooperation does not matter. The patient is going to be cooperative. And two, you can complete multiple treatments in one go without having to worry about other things. So if required, yes, I would suggest general anesthesia as well.
Another question is, how often would you suggest a dental checkup for a kid who's not used to brushing well and gargling well? Normally 6 months is what dentists prescribe, but for our kids who are not brushing well, how often should they be visiting the dentist?
So usually what happens is that we advise that any kid, whether having any disease or not, we advise every kid to be present for their first dental visit with their parents at the age of 6 months. That is the age where the first tooth erupts inside their mouth. So that appointment definitely is not going to be done used to do any treatment, because the tooth has just started coming up in the mouth and we don't see any cavity on that tooth. But that appointment is important because that just makes the patient more used to the dental office. So once you start getting the patient to the dental office for your own dental visits as well, it is a sense of security and a sense of, oh, I know this place, I know this doctor, I've been coming here for a long time. It helps to enforce some kind of good relationship between the dentist and the patient, and it gives them the confidence, okay, my parents have been all right on the dental chair, I'm going to sail through as well. So that's something that is very important. And if you ask me as a dentist, if you ask me how early should care for the child's dental health begin, it would be as soon as your pregnancy, the pregnancy of the parents. Because when you're pregnant is when the child makes tooth start forming, before the child is even born.
Darshana, would you like to ask the next question?
Basically, I had a basic question, Priyanka. The thing is, most of our children go into varied medications, and
Right.
amongst that is at times we've seen homeopathy, where
Right.
they have these sugar balls, and I think these medicines are given at frequent intervals. So, does these medicines also have an impact on the teeth, and what precautions a parent needs to take when the child is prescribed with such kind of medicines?
Right. So, like I mentioned, when you talk about homeopathic medicines, most of them are given in the form of sugar pills. Now, these sugar pills, the medicine component from the homeopathic point of view has nothing to do with your dental health. But because the medicine is put onto sugar pills and the sugar pills are consumed via the mouth, it's the sugar in the sugar pills that is of concern to us. This sugar is going to do the same thing that any other sweet, acidic, or sticky food is going to do. It's going to get stuck on the surface of your teeth. It's going to cause secretion of some acids, and that acid is going to cause breakdown of your tooth. So that again is going to lead to some sort of dental decay. Another thing that now that you mentioned this, another thing I would like to also bring to your notice is a lot of parents of young babies, of small babies, have this habit of leaving their milk bottle into their mouth and let the baby fall asleep. This also works on the same principle because of the sugar content in natural milk, the natural sugar content in milk, the milk gets stuck onto the teeth surfaces, and those kids also become more susceptible to dental decay. So whether it's milk, whether it's any sweet food, or whether it's the sweet pills from homeopathy, the ground rule is after anything has been eaten, as a small child, the parent should take the responsibility of cleaning the kid's teeth and gums. And as a slightly older individual, the person should be trained to gargle after having anything.
Believe the parent should be very precautiously making the child gargle after the medicine is consumed, right?
Yes, yes.
So these
There should be
precautions
good
need to be
gargling.
taken.
Yes.
Yes. Over to you, Abis.
I don't think there are any more questions because I think this person is a little anxious about the anesthesia. And I think sometimes what happens is, Dr. Priyanka, don't you think parents pass on their fears to the children? Because here this parent is definitely very anxious about giving anesthesia to the child and feels that there should be other options apart from general anesthesia. But I think we, as parents, we should leave it to the doctor to suggest the best option available, isn't it?
Right.
Right?
General
Right.
anesthesia is usually the last option employed when we have run out of all the other options. Also, this hesitation is it only because it's general anesthesia for dental treatment? Because you think, oh, dental treatment, why for something as small as a tooth should I go through the trouble of
Correct.
putting my kids to anesthesia? Why do you not want to accept the fact that your child's tooth is as much a part of his or her body as is a finger? If there's an injury to the finger and your child is not cooperating to get the stitches, wouldn't you say, yes, let's put the child under general anesthesia and get it stitched up? Or would you let it bleed? So it's something as simple as that. Please understand that the child's teeth are as much part of their body and as required for their overall health as any other part of the body is. So do not take that lightly and do not just belittle dental problems saying it's just a question of a tooth.
I think, and I completely agree with Dr. Priyanka, because I myself, as a parent, has done this. Like when Varun was very young, and we had to uproot, like say 2, 3 at a time, because of crowding teeth. We have given him complete anesthesia in an OT room. We had taken him to a hospital. The dentist ended up coming there, and it was so good. Like I was like, wow, wish I could do this when I was a young child, because I was equally petrified to take my tooth off. Visiting a dentist was a terror for me too. So yes, as parents, I think the parent, whoever is so worried, could even talk and discuss these things with other parents who might have done this. Uh, I think we don't have any other questions, right? Please?
Right, right. We don't have any other.
Great, great. Priyanka, this was such a lovely information, because there was so much to hear, and because many times parents' basic the thing is the child doesn't cooperate to brush, gargle, and even as a parent till now today, I thought that my son is gargling with a mouthwash, which is safe and good, but then I believe it's not really that very safe and that very good. I think there's a question. Okay. I think we have taken this question by Arundhati Shenoy. Priyanka, I'll just
Yes,
take
we
it.
have.
Yeah, but I think I'll repeat it. Maybe the parent is not satisfied. I think she says, my son has been using electric toothbrush for more than 3 years now. Is
Right.
there any long-term adverse effect due to the electric toothbrush?
No, not really. The electric toothbrush is doing the same thing that your conventional manual toothbrush would do. It's just getting all the food debris off your teeth surfaces. So the electric toothbrush would be as bad as a normal toothbrush if the toothbrush head is not changed regularly. It's just the only difference between the manual toothbrush and the electric toothbrush is that the electric toothbrush is battery operated and the patient just needs to hold it in the correct space. While when you compare it to a manual toothbrush, the teeth brushing movements have to be made by the individual. So in fact, for patients who have a lack of manual dexterity, we need to make sure that we train them to use the electric toothbrush to ensure a much better dental hygiene. Having said that, again, you need to follow the tell, show, do protocol, wherein the patient needs to be taught to place the toothbrush head at the correct position at the margin of their gums, sorry, not tongue, gums, margin of the gums and the tooth. Once it is placed there correctly and for the right amount of time, the patient will be able to ensure that that area is clean before moving on to the next area.
Okay.
There's another question which says that my child does chew his toothbrush and it goes bad within a month. So would you suggest an electric toothbrush for that to be used
Uh,
instead of a normal one?
if the child's habit is to bite onto the toothbrush bristles, whether it's an electric toothbrush or a manual toothbrush, the patient is still going to do that. So it would be much better to try and break the habit of chewing the toothbrush. Again, it is going to take a certain amount of time to be able to convince the child that, okay, brushing the toothbrush, biting onto the toothbrush bristles and chewing it off is not good for you. Also, if the toothbrush bristles are not in the correct shape, if they're chewed off or if they're completely worn out or if the shape has changed, a worn out toothbrush is not going to be any good to clean the teeth. So if the child's frequency of using messing up the toothbrush bristles is much higher, then you need to ensure you change the toothbrush on a more regular basis and simultaneously start training the child to not chew onto the bristles.
Uh, Another question just popped into my mind, Dr. Priyanka, is like
Yes.
any specific toothpaste as such? Because at times, most of our parents avoid giving sweetness or sweet or sugar
Right.
food to our children. But then most of our toothpaste are more towards the sweet, they're quite sweet in taste. So any specific toothpaste which you says, which you would prescribe, ki avoid it for a child with autism, or like they're all the same?
Not really. Most of the toothpaste, the sugar content that is there is very less, and most of them, the sugar content is based on a non-decay causing sugar. So it's
Okay.
some sort of artificial sweetness factor that comes in. So toothpaste itself will not really make a huge difference. Everyone has their own preferences. Say some of them would like to use a gel-based toothpaste. Some of them would like to use a more paste-based toothpaste. So that again depends on individual choice. And another thing is there are certain toothpaste brands which have got a slightly coarser toothpaste. I wouldn't want to take names of the brands right now, but there are certain toothpastes that have got a slightly rough particle size that can cause some amount of wear to the teeth. So brushing your teeth needs to be done with a very gentle and firm pressure. You do not need to literally, push the toothbrush onto your teeth. It needs to be very gentle, firm pressure just to clean the debris which is on the tooth surface, not to rub off the enamel of the tooth surface.
Okay.
A parent is, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Babis.
A parent is concerned about whether there is any pain caused due to fluoride treatments. Could you just throw that light on that? That it's just
Fluoride treatments are absolutely pain-free. Fluoride treatments are done before the problem starts. So before there is a decay, if you get fluoride application done, fluoride application is basically applying some amount of fluoride-based substance. It could either be a gel or a foam or just a varnish. So like you would apply a coat of nail paint onto your nails, fluoride is just applied with a very soft applicator brush onto the teeth. This does not involve any kind of pain, and the only cooperation needed from the patient at this stage is to be able to keep the mouth open for the 3 to 4 minutes during which the application is going to be done. So there is no pain that comes into the picture. Once a tooth has developed a cavity, there is no sense in doing any fluoride treatment because a cavity is an irreversible damage to the tooth. Once a cavity has formed, there is no going back. You cannot do a fluoride on that tooth. You need to get the cavity treated. You need to get a filling done, post which you can repeat the fluoride application.
This parent is very worried about the use of electric toothbrush. She wonders whether it will weaken the gums. Is it true?
It would weaken the gums only and only if it is pushed into the gums very hard, which is a very, very rare occurrence.
Correct.
Even a normal toothbrush would do the same to your gums if it is pushed. So in terms of damage being caused by electric toothbrush versus a normal toothbrush, there is no difference. It all depends on the kind of forces that you are using.
And there's one more. Till what age should the fluoride treatment be done?
So fluoride treatment is usually done for younger kids at the age of 3 years once all their teeth have erupted and they are able to spit out the remaining fluoride. And for older individuals, fluoride application should start, the first sitting should be at the age of 6 years, which is when the first milk tooth, the first permanent tooth starts erupting. And after that, consequently, when each permanent tooth erupts till the age of 13, if you keep doing the fluoride application on a regular basis, you should be good to go.
Okay. I think we have no more questions. Isn't it, Sarika and Darshana?
Yes,
I think we're through with it. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Priyanka. That was a lovely webinar and you have answered practically all questions which parents have put up. Thank you for all your patience. And
Thank you so
thanks
much.
a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me over and giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you.